And there we go. So our session this evening is a webinar format, which means a little bit of housekeeping right off the bat. We are recording this session. Takes about a week after the session's over, but eventually we will have a copy of this posted at collegeiswithinreachhawaii.com. Again, it won't be immediately. It takes about a week for us to get it transferred and whatever the IT people do with things like this to get it working so that you have access to it. Because we are in a webinar format, your cameras, microphones, and the chat function have been turned off. So we can't see you at all. We can't see any pictures or anything like that. And you will not be able, it's not an open mic, so you will not be able to vocalize your questions. But we do encourage you to ask questions. We've got the experts here this evening. We might as well take advantage of their knowledge. So we encourage you to use the Q&A for any questions that you may have. DJ and Lauren will be monitoring that as the presenters are talking, and then the presenters will come on and answer any questions that we don't have the answer right off for you, but we do encourage you to ask questions. We want to be able to answer your questions this evening. I do caution you, please do not post any personal or sensitive personal information about the student in the Q&A. It is not a secure line by any means whatsoever, and we don't want to compromise. So no social security numbers, names, date of birth, and things like that. If you do have more personalized questions that you need to ask, feel free to shoot us an email at fasfa@hawaii.edu. This is the Hawaii State Help Center for FAFSA and all things FAFSA related. Just so you know, it is DJ Gusty Gus and myself that man that. So you are getting directly to us by sending emails to there. And at that point, we can figure out the best way to work with you. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Elise Sanders, who we're very pleased to have. She's on the mainland. So we're going to start off with her so that we can get her back to bed at an early hour. No, I'm just kidding. Out to dinner anyway. So Elise, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay.
And I'll have you swoop in and start sharing. And it's going to work really smooth. Stopping.
Perfect. Give me a moment to get this up. Hold on a moment. Can you see my slides?
There it is. Good job. That was pretty smooth.
Perfect.
All yours.
Perfect. Okay, so let me start out by introducing myself to everybody. My name's Elise Sanders. As Frank mentioned, I'm part of Sallie Mae's relationship management team. A little bit about me. I've been in higher education for over 35 years in a variety of different roles. I live here in Southern California. I always like to say, though, my most important role is that of a parent. I've been in your shoes. I put 2 kids through college. So I really know the importance of trying to find some free money to pay for school. Let me introduce you to Sallie Mae. We are an education solutions company, and we help students with all kinds of financial literacy tools to help with college readiness and college success. And I am going to hop into the presentation. So today, is it tonight? It's tonight there too. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about paying for college and how scholarships can really help you cover some of the costs. There are a variety of different scholarship resources that we're going to talk about, and we're going to touch on scholarship search engines. They are really easy to navigate, and we're going to learn some strategies on creating that winning scholarship essay. And then I'm going to share some tips on applying for scholarships. So let's take a look at how scholarships can really help you cover some of your costs. Now, before I dive into this whole session, I want to share the importance of making a plan to pay for school. So this is Sallie Mae's recommendation. It's really very basic and simple. We want you to start with that free money first. That's going to help you supplement any savings or any income you plan to use to pay for school. So what we want you to do is to maximize grants, scholarships, and work study. Now, in order to do that, you have to fill out that form from the federal government, which is that free application for federal student aid known as the FAFSA. And the next step would be exploring federal loans. Now, if there's still a gap left over between all of those free resources that you found and the federal loans, then there are some other funding options. You can look at federal parent loans, you could look at tuition payment plans if the school that you're going to be attending offers it, and there's also private loans. I keep this slide in my presentation for the last several years. Obviously, it gets refreshed. This information comes directly from the College Board. They do a survey every single year, and they call it Trends in College Pricing. So the numbers on this slide show the average national cost of attending a variety of different schools. So I listed a 2-year public school, that would be Leeward or Windward or Kapiolani. There's a 4-year public in-state university, UH Manoa, UH Hilo. There's also a 4-year public out-of-state university. Maybe your kids are going to come to the mainland, go to UCLA or University of Oregon. And then there's a 4-year private university. Now, keep in mind, these are national averages, and it represents 1 year's worth of costs. You're going to have to multiply it by the number of years you're going to go to school to figure out the actual cost of the education. Now, if you're looking at the slide, you're thinking, there's no way that it costs $21,230 to go to Leeward. That's correct, because what's listed here on this slide are the direct and indirect costs. So let me break that down for you. Direct costs are going to include your tuition and fees. And if you're going to be living on a college campus, it also includes room and board. Now, Leeward doesn't have dorms on campus, but UH Manoa does. Then there's also indirect costs that's included in here. Things like your books and your supplies, which you can influence to some degree. For instance, are you going to buy your books? Are you going to rent them? Or are you going to borrow them? That could be a pretty big, significant difference because college textbooks could cost a couple, $300, depending on the subject. It also includes transportation, miscellaneous expenses, that new laptop that you might need. So all of that is included. And if you're living off campus, it also includes the cost of either an apartment to rent or maybe a room in somebody's house. Now, you can find the cost of attendance. Typically, the schools will publish it on their financial aid page, so you can get a truer picture of what it costs. Now, again, this is a national average. Some schools are more expensive than others, so take a peek at the colleges that you're going to be exploring. Let's talk a little bit more about the importance of that free application for federal student aid that we refer to as the FAFSA. Every scholarship that's going to come from the state or local government is going to require that you filled out the FAFSA. Now, the same thing holds true for scholarships that come directly from the colleges themselves. And a portion of scholarships that come from outside sources might also require the completion of the FAFSA. Great news. The Department of Education has released the FAFSA for the 26-27 academic year. And most of the required information is going to come from your tax return. So families that are going to be completing the FAFSA for the 26-27 academic year, you will be using your 2024 tax return information. This needs to be completed on an annual basis. It's not a once and done. Every year you're in school, every year you're in graduate school, you need to complete that FAFSA. Why is this important? And you want to do it quickly because some financial aid is going to be awarded on a first come, first served basis. So you want to apply as soon as possible because you don't want to miss out on any opportunities. So for the last 18 years, Sallie Mae has conducted a survey called How America Pays for College, and this is hot off the press. So for the 24-25 academic year, we found that the average breakout of how families were paying from school came from a variety of different sources. So let's take a look at this chart. You can see that there are 6 funding sources, and in shades of blue, you'll find parent income and savings, and student income and savings. That covers about half of how families reported to us that they paid for school. Then in shades of yellow, you'll see parent and student borrowing in which is about 25%. And then in that lilac color, you'll see money from relatives or friends. Maybe a grandparent is going to pay for that new laptop or books for school. And then grants and scholarships are in that hot pink color, and it's more than 25%. Now, I said we did the survey. We've conducted it for about 17, 18 years this year. We don't really see significant shifts in these percentages, just a point or two. Really hasn't changed drastically. Last year, 60% of the families that we surveyed reported that they relied on scholarships to help pay for college. And they received around $8,000. Now, as you'd expect, the percentages of families who relied on scholarships and the average amounts varied greatly by school type. And you can see that in the hot pink based on the different types of schools. You can also see that the percentage of scholarship costs that were covered by scholarships varied by school type as well. So 10% of costs for families with students at a 2-year public school, 13% for those that attended a 4-year public, and 21% for those that attended a 4-year private school. Some additional information that we learned from this last survey. 75% of families that relied on scholarships reported that scholarships made it possible for their student to attend. Without it, they weren't going to be able to go. And then I love this other statistic. 86% of families told us that earning a scholarship is something that they were really proud of. So how are students and families finding out about scholarships? So what we learned from this last survey is that colleges play a huge role in actually creating awareness of scholarship opportunities. That's not really a big surprise, since most scholarships are given out by the colleges. High schools were another big source of information on scholarships, and so were online search tools like Scholly by Sallie Mae that we're going to look at later on at the end of the session to help find free money. On average, students who applied for scholarships indicated that they submitted 5 applications hoping to win. 70% of families that didn't use scholarships last year didn't even apply, which is kind of mind-boggling to us. Why aren't more families applying for scholarships? Why aren't they looking for that free money? So what our research suggests is that the primary reason is that it has to do with a lack of awareness. So this slide really breaks out the reasons why families didn't apply for scholarships. 34% of families who didn't apply told us that they didn't know about scholarships or they didn't know about any scholarships for their students. 28% made a trade-off between their perceived likelihood of winning. I don't think I'm going to win. I'm not going to bother. 22% didn't have time to apply, and 17% didn't think the scholarship was legitimate. So how do you know if the scholarship is legitimate? It has to be from a trusted source. And 14% missed the deadline, and 13% told us it was too much of an effort. There are millions of dollars in scholarship funds that families don't take advantage of each year. They're left unclaimed, and it's largely due to a lack of applicants and some basic misconceptions. Last slide with statistics. We also asked our study participants agreement level with a few additional questions about scholarships. So the first question was, do you think scholarships are only available for students with exceptional grades, like a 4.3, or abilities, like they participate in a sport? 46% of the families that we surveyed agreed with that statement, which means about half of the college families are totally unaware of the thousands of scholarships that are awarded based on criteria that has nothing to do with either grades or athletics. For almost every skill or hobby, you probably can find a scholarship. A new data point that we collected from this last survey told us 36% of college families think that students can only apply for scholarships before their freshman year. Now, of course, we all know that students should apply for scholarships early and often. It's an activity that needs to be undertaken throughout your college journey. And then the last question we asked is if you think it's worth applying for scholarships if your family earns too much money. Now, we can't quantify what they thought was too much money. It was all over the board with that particular answer. But there are scholarships that don't consider the financial situation at all of a family. Now, scholarships can come from a variety of different places, and you're going to hear all about several different options today with other panelists as well. But what do you need to do, and where do you find them? So let me start out by saying this. Scholarships are financial aid awards. It's free money. They don't have to be repaid. This is the best kind of financial aid you can get. Now, the scholarship could cover your entire cost of your tuition or be a one-time award of a few $100s. Either way, worth applying for. It's going to help you reduce your cost of your education. And if you're wondering when and how to apply, each of these scholarships are going to have their own unique requirements. They're going to indicate on their websites what you need to do to apply, when the deadline dates are, whether or not you need to write an essay. Now, if you've missed a deadline, you can still be looking while you're in school, if there are any people on the call that have kids that are in college right now. Make sure that you read those applications carefully and fill them out completely so that you don't miss out on any opportunities. All right, let's talk a little bit about the different type of scholarships that are available. Because of our survey, we know a lot of people think you have to be a scholar or an athlete, and in some cases that's true, but there are so many other opportunities out there. If you have a skill or a hobby or an interest, you probably can find a scholarship. Now, the challenge is looking for the right scholarships, and we know it can take some time, but the more free money you find, the less you're going to have to borrow or pay out of pocket. And I placed a few different reasons to be awarded a scholarship on this slide. Obviously, academic. If you have a really good GPA, you're probably going to be able to find an academic scholarship. Financial need. That's going to be the information off of the FAFSA. Have some kind of community involvement, organizational membership. You do participate in a sport. It could be a club sport, a talent, a skill. You participate in some kind of leadership activity at school. You could be awarded a scholarship based on your ethnicity or your religious affiliation. Maybe parents, your employer offers a scholarship, or you participate in some kind of club or organization. You need to look everywhere for scholarships. Now, with the millions of dollars in scholarships, where do you go? We're going to talk about search engines on the next couple of slides, but you can find scholarships all over the place. Employers have them, private companies have them, nonprofit organizations, community organizations, religious groups, social groups. I always tell students, ask your family and friends if any organizations they're involved with or employer offers a scholarship program. And if the student has a job, ask their employer. There are a lot of private companies that have scholarship programs that are left unused every single academic year. Another great resource is your high school counselors. Typically, they will publish a list of local scholarships. You either have to have graduated from that school or lived in that community. Check everywhere. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about a search engine. If you haven't used them, they're really helpful. Let me tell you a little bit more about them. So what these search engines do is they house an aggregate list of scholarships, and it allows you to be matched based on the information you're putting into their tool. There are a variety of search engines. There's a lot of them out there. Scholly by Sallie. Sallie has actually helped students find millions of dollars in scholarships. Here's the best part. It's free and it's super simple to use. And we no longer require students to actually create a profile. We used to actually. For those of you that are old Shark Tank watchers, Scully was pitched on Shark Tank. Gentleman by the name of Christopher Gray went on Shark Tank and pitched this tool. Laura Grenier and Damon John both invested in it. We bought it from them. When we bought it, we required a profile. We did some focus groups. Students said, really don't want to create a profile. So now all you need to do is simply filter some criteria. For example, do you want to look for scholarships that don't require writing an essay, or ones that don't require a minimum GPA, or ones that don't require letters of recommendation? You can find things in the tool that are need-based or merit-based based on your ethnicity, the state you live in, your major. There are other tools as well. A couple of really good ones, FastWeb and Big Future by the College Board. Here's a couple things I want you to know about search engines. They should be free, and the scholarships that you're applying for should also be free. So I'm going to tell you to be wary of any search engine that asks for a fee to apply or to receive the funds, because it could be a scam. We also recommend that you create a separate email account, because a lot of the search engines are going to sell your contact information and you're going to be bombarded with a ton of email solicitation. I'm a total helicopter parent, created profiles for my kids, and when I did that, I set up a separate email account. Okay, so what else should you look for in a search engine? Again, they're going to help you narrow your search. Another really important thing to know is that they are legitimate, because when they're in our tools, we vet the scholarships so you know they're safe and secure. So you want to look for ones I said that are free, and don't pay anybody to help you find scholarships. They're really easy to navigate on your own. Look for ones that validate the scholarships so that you know that they're up to date. Nothing more frustrating than taking the time, submitting a scholarship essay, and realizing you missed the deadline. It was 2 months ago. So look for ones that have calendar features or timelines so they can help you with those deadline dates. And ones that are mobile friendly. Everybody has a cell phone. No better time than right now to start searching for and winning scholarships to pay for college. Now, after you've been matched with some scholarship possibilities, you may need to do a little bit of work. Each application is going to have their own criteria, but many of them are going to require some form of a scholarship essay. And if this makes you nervous, on the next couple of slides, I'm going to give you some tips. What should you focus on? How do you get started? What should you put in that essay? This isn't your typical school essay. This really is a chance to show who you are beyond your grades and your test scores. Common sense, right? Start early. Internets go down. People have trouble with their computer. I had to reboot my computer a couple of times today. Give yourself plenty of time to produce that well thought out entry. Brainstorm, create an outline, and then edit it as you would for any essay writing assignment for an English class. Now, if you need recommendations, you want to be respectful. Ask early. Give teachers or mentors at least 3 to 4 weeks to write something meaningful or personalized. I work with a lot of high schools out here in California, and some of them have a window of dates that students are able to ask teachers for recommendations. Find out if that's the case at the school that you're all going to. You also want to make sure that you understand the prompt. So carefully read those essay questions and make sure you address every part of it. I will tell you that not answering specific questions or prompts is one of the biggest mistakes students make. Always stay focused on what's being asked. You also want to highlight your strengths. So focus on your academic achievements, your leadership roles, community service you might have done, and personal growth. You also want to share your financial need. So be honest and specific. Let that committee know how the scholarship is going to help you, whether it's for your tuition or your books or your housing or any other expenses. Another tip, if you're going to be interviewing, make sure to dress to impress that organization. Take the time to send a thank you note after you've met with them. A brief note of appreciation for that opportunity is going to leave a really positive impression on that organization. You also want to stay organized, so keep track of deadlines. You can use an Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Organization is going to be key in making sure that you don't miss out on any opportunities. And keep looking. Search for scholarships every year, not just before you start college, not just during your first year, but all the way through college, all the way through graduate school. And look, take some breaks if you need to. If you feel overwhelmed, take a break. Don't give up. Come back refreshed and continue. All right, let's talk a little bit about the do's in writing your scholarship essay. You want to make sure to include the advice or wisdom you've received and describe how that scholarship is going to change your life. Don't forget to stick to the basics. So in addition to what I have highlighted here on the slide, there are some other additional items to consider. You want to know your audience. So tailor your tone and content to that scholarship provider's values and also their goals. You have to know what their mission is. You also want to be authentic. So share genuine experiences, your goals, your challenges. I will tell you that authenticity resonates much more than perfection. You also want to use specific examples. So illustrate your achievements and character with concrete stories and stay focused and organized. You want to structure your essay with an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Stick to the main theme. So try to avoid unrelated details. Keep your message simple and clear. And proofread. Scholarship committees notice spelling and grammatical mistakes. Even the tiniest of errors can distract that reader from the overall message. So before you hit that submit button, make sure you review it. Have somebody review it for you. Maybe there's a writing center on your campus. And don't forget to follow the formatting guidelines. So respect word count, font size, and any other instructions they provide. They say minimum or maximum of 500 words. Don't write an essay that's 1,000 words. It's going to be rejected. And then highlight your strengths. So showcase your academic achievements, your leadership roles, community service. Scholarship providers don't expect you to be perfect. Maybe you overcame a hardship, but you succeeded despite the obstacles in your path. Talk about what you learned from the times you failed. That's going to make that essay much more genuine, ultimately a lot more memorable to that scholarship committee. They're reading a lot of scholarships. Okay, let's talk about the don'ts. We just talked about the do's. Let's cover the don'ts. Don't overuse famous quotes, as it's going to feel very impersonal. You want to avoid those grandiose ways to describe the scholarship. Don't be too generic. So vague statements like, I want to help people, that doesn't stand out. Tell them how and why. And don't exaggerate or fabricate. You want to stay honest. Scholarship committees can spot insincerity. And don't use informal language, right? Avoid the slang and the emojis and that over casual tone. You need to keep it professional and respectful. Now, the essay has to have order, because otherwise it's going to be confusing. So don't ramble. Stay on topic. As I said earlier, avoid unnecessary details. Keep it simple with a main message. And don't neglect the conclusion. End with a really strong summary. That's going to reinforce your message and leave a lasting impression. Another tip, don't brag without substance. So it's important to highlight your achievements, but back them up with context and humility. Show how they've shaped your goals or your values. Now, on the flip side, don't be too modest. Don't downplay your accomplishments. This really is your chance to shine. Just do it with balance. Now, not showing passion or purpose, essays that feel flat or can actually feel flat or disconnected from your goals won't stand out. So let that enthusiasm or motivation come through. Another tip, don't just copy and paste. So if you're going to be using the same essay for multiple scholarships, make sure that you customize it to that particular organization. Otherwise, it's going to feel impersonal. And don't submit without reviewing, because a rushed essay full of all kinds of errors is going to hurt your chance, no matter how strong the content. My last tip on this slide, don't miss the deadline dates, right? Submitting late or not following the instructions can actually disqualify you from your application, no matter how great that essay is. So don't miss the deadlines. All right, let's talk a little bit more about what's going to make for a good essays. It's going to be your backgrounds, your experiences, your ambitions. It really is your opportunity to make that strong and lasting impression. Here's a couple of tips. Be original, be genuine, be honest. Choose a topic that you truly enjoy, or something that you're passionate about, or something that was really meaningful in your life, and tell the committee why you think you deserve the scholarship. Other students are going to be applying for that same exact scholarship. I've said it a couple of times, don't put too much information that's not related to that topic into that scholarship essay. Stick with a simple story and message. And don't just say what you did or make a list of accomplishments, but talk about what you learned, how it helped others, the overall message. Maybe something that happened in your life inspired you to move towards a particular major in college or accomplish a challenge. Tell your story. It's going to make it much more genuine and ultimately a lot more memorable. There are numerous types of scholarships to apply for, academic ones, ones that don't require essays, ones that don't have a minimum GPA, scholarships based on your degree, your major, merit-based, need-based. You can find scholarships based on your ethnicity, your race, your gender. If you have a disability, if maybe you are a first generation college student, you have a military affiliation. The list goes on and on. Now, in some of the tools, you can find scholarships based on hobbies or interests, things like dance or photography or music. There are state-specific scholarships, and there are scholarships for different personal characteristics. There is something out there for what makes you unique. Now, if you need more assistance, you can use this QR code to go out to Sallie Mae's website. A lot of the information that I shared tonight came directly from our website, all free tools. We've got tips, etc., all on our website, which I'll show you in a few moments. We also have this hacked video to provide you with some additional support. Some tips for applying for scholarships. You want to make sure you're organized. That's going to help you navigate through this process. Be authentic. So remember to tell a story that represents you. Know the requirements. You want to make sure that you address everything that that organization is looking for. And don't forget to reach out to teachers, coaches, employers, somebody who can provide a strong recommendation, somebody other than a family member, and send them a thank you note. It goes a really long way, not only to them, but also to the scholarship providers. And then don't forget to create that lasting impression. You want to stand out. Other students are going to be applying for the exact same scholarship. Here's a couple things to remember. Obviously, meet the deadline dates. You don't want to miss out on any of those opportunities. List and highlight your most important accomplishments first. You want to make sure they stand out. And showcase your honors and awards. This is your time to shine. Talk about the great things you've done. And don't rule out the smaller scholarships. They can add up pretty quickly. You'll have less competition for the $1,000 scholarships than you will for the $10, $20, $30,000 scholarships. Now, I'm not saying don't apply for those. Absolutely apply for them, but don't neglect the smaller ones as well. And make sure that you're applying early. If its application is due on the 15th, don't submit it on the 15th. Get it to them, a couple of days before. And you have to be looking for scholarships every single year, all the way through college, all the way through graduate school. Okay, so now you've won the scholarship. There are some things you're going to want to understand. How in the world are you going to get the money? Well, that's going to depend on the scholarship organization. Most of the time, these organizations are going to send that money directly to the colleges themselves, and they'll apply it to any tuition or fees you might owe. Sometimes the provider will send it to you directly. They should let you know how they're going to fund it when they inform you that you've been awarded the scholarship. They don't ask them, they'll tell you. How is the scholarship going to affect other aid? All student aid added together can't be more than the cost of attendance. So if we go back to that College Board slide that I showed you earlier today, you can find enough scholarship dollars to cover your cost of attendance for both those direct and indirect costs: tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, miscellaneous expenses. And I'm going to quote Frank, because we've done these for many years. You cannot make money on scholarships, but you can find enough to cover that cost. If you are fortunate enough to find more than the cost of your education, ask some of those providers if they'll hold the money for the following academic year. They may not. Doesn't hurt to ask them. You have to let the financial aid office know that you have been awarded a scholarship. So make sure you go into the financial aid office and let them know. They may have to adjust other types of financial aid. Let's say the cost of your college is 50,000 and you found or were awarded $50,000 worth of scholarships. Maybe you were granted other things that they will cancel. So make sure you go into the financial aid office. Last thing on the slide. If the scholarship is renewable, it's really important that you understand the requirements. Is that organization requiring you to maintain a certain grade point average? Let's say 3.5, and now you fall to a 3.3. Are you at risk at losing that scholarship? Do they require you to maintain a certain enrollment status? Are they saying you have to be full-time and you dropped a few classes and now you're not full-time? Are you at risk for losing that scholarship? Was the scholarship based on your degree or major? Do you have to reapply? Does it happen automatically? All important things to be aware of. And then for more assistance, you can use this QR code to go out to Scholly. Sallie Mae also has a FAFSA guide. It's a step-by-step tutorial. All of these resources are free on our website that explains and drills down into each of the questions to help you answer what the Department of Ed is looking for. So you could capture those codes if you'd like to go out and take a peek at any of that. Now, if you give me one moment, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pull up the scholarship search tool to show you how easy they are. Give me one moment. Okay, here we go. So as I mentioned before, we no longer require a profile, so we have unfiltered, ungated all of our tools, all of the stuff that's in our tool. We do a $2,000 monthly sweepstake because we don't keep a profile. You can come in every month and fill out the form. It's very simple. You hyperlink from here. We ask you a few basic questions: student or parent, the year you're graduating, upcoming study level, and how you want to hear from us, etc. Simple. Let me scroll down and show you some more information. So here's tips. A lot of the stuff I share today is on our website. Different types of college scholarships you can research, how to apply, how to write that winning scholarship essay. Then you're going to go to Scholly, find scholarships now. I said before, they're all ungated. So here's Sallie Mae's 2000, no essay, by the way. Here are two others that are no essay that you can apply for. All you have to do is select some criteria. So you can say, I am a high school senior, and scholarships will pop up. You want to look for ones that don't require an essay. You don't feel comfortable writing one. I would not select any particular dollar amount. Don't limit yourself to one bucket of money. Look for all the things that are available. You can pick your state. There are majors. It goes on and on and on. I'm just going to scroll down just to show you. There's a lot of majors in here where you can find some things associated with that major. And it's still going. And it's going. And then there are different types of scholarship as well. Whoops, I hit that too quickly. So you can tell us if you are disabled or you're first generation college student, if you're part of the military, Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders, etc. I am going to stop here and Gus, ask if any questions have come into the Q&A or chat that I can help answer.
Yeah. At least some really great questions have popped up. The first one is, How do scholarships combine with post 9/11 military benefits? Do you happen to know?
I think that's a better question for Frank.
Yeah. Godfather, you have any idea?
I do. It doesn't combine. They're totally separate, and you can have both. So
Up
if
to the cost of
up to
attendance.
the cost of attendance. Back to you can't make money by going to college, but you can certainly have post 9/11 and you can have scholarships.
We get this question a lot, Godfather, from students who are thinking about going into the military. So I want to ask this question. Um, if a student is thinking about going into the military, should they do the FAFSA?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And not for student loans, obviously, but if you're eligible for a federal Pell Grant, that's free money. Take it and then save your extra benefits, your GI benefits for later.
Awesome. At least this one's about Scully. The question is Scully provides filters to drill down to scholarships based on various criteria, which is helpful. But is there a way for the user to search for their own terms and submit text like a free text search?
There is not. It's all based on the criteria that's in there. You just filter and see what pops up.
Okay. This question is asking, does scholarships wired directly to the school or to the individual applicant? If you get more scholarship than the tuition, sorry.
Oh, you broke up there, unless it was
Yep.
me.
No, that's me. That's me.
Okay. I heard the first part. Does a scholarship get wired directly to the school or the individual applicant? That's going to depend on the scholarship organization. Most of the time, it goes directly to the colleges, but
Yeah.
sometimes they'll send it to you. Um, and there was another part that I didn't hear.
Yeah, there's another part. If you get more scholarship than the tuition or the remaining balance, it gets, yeah. So what happens if you get more scholarship money than the tuition, than the tuition that is owed?
So typically, the school will give you that money, so you can use it for the indirect costs, like your room and board, and your books and supplies and transportation.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Um, and this question is asking, what are club sports?
It would be something where you're not playing on a college campus, right? If you're not playing football or basketball for the school, but you still play, tag football in a club league or, a local league, there might be an opportunity for a scholarship.
Okay. Will scholarships cover on-campus housing and food programs?
Absolutely. Again, you can find enough money to cover those direct and indirect costs up to the cost of attendance. I'm going to make up a number. Let's say UH Manoa is 53,000. I don't know, so don't quote me. I'm not 100% sure. You can be awarded 53,000, and that could be for everything, including tuition, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, miscellaneous expenses.
Okay. And how do you know a scholarship would be available to you? Does does some scholarships have certain areas that it works for?
So you have to read the criteria. They'll indicate on their websites what the criteria is, and what you need to do to apply. It's going to vary by organization. Now, just because you filter some of the tools, right, some of the criteria, doesn't necessarily mean that's a shoe-in for you. It's just giving you a guide. So you have to look at their website and read what the requirements are. Great
Okay.
questions.
And then we're gonna take this one last question that just popped up. Does your site sort by non-need based scholarships? Most of the scholarships are need based. Is that true?
I think there are some in there actually. And they are rolling. So once the scholarship becomes the deadline date passes, they fall off. So we're constantly adding and refreshing them. So you have to continue to look on a regular basis.
Okay, perfect. Mahalo, Elise. Godfather, back to you.
Elise, thank you. Thank you very much. And if you would hang around for just a little bit,
I will.
folks, if you still have questions, we've convinced her to stay out of bed for just a bit. Please go ahead and post that in the Q&A. And afterwards, if we still get Sallie Mae type questions for Elise, we will certainly forward those questions to her and she can respond directly to you. So right now, we're going to go ahead and move ahead and bring on Hawai'i Community Foundation. And Kelly's going to be joining us from Hawai'i Community Foundation. So Kelly, I'm going to stop sharing and you go ahead and share. And again, it'll be smooth. We'll have no problems. It'll work without a hitch. Okay, Kelly, all you now. And a girl, yes. I'm liking what I see.
All right. Can everyone see okay?
You got it.
All right. Let's get started. So, just to reintroduce myself again, my name is Kelly and I'm from the Hawai'i Community Foundation. And tonight I'll be talking about our upcoming 2026 and 2027 Common Scholarship application. So, tonight I'm just going to give you an overview of the program, and then at the end, I'm going to give you some helpful tips to keep in mind while you're filling out the application. So, some bits of information of why you should apply for HCF scholarships. It's a very simple process. It's just the one online application you need to fill out. And by submitting it, it will qualify you for over 300 different scholarships that we administer. So, in the previous 2025-2026 academic year, we awarded over 8 million in scholarships. The average award amount per recipient was 6,900, but it can be less or more depending on your circumstances, and you can be awarded up to the cost of attendance. So some important dates for the upcoming application. It is not open yet. It will open on December 8th of this year, but more importantly, it's going to close on February 26th of next year at 4 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. And this is a firm deadline, so if you do not submit your application by this time, you will have to wait till the next application to apply again. And then the third deadline for you to know is the letters of recommendation, which are due from your recommenders at 4 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time on March 13th of next year. So I'm going to walk you through how to get to the application. So first things first, you're going to go to our website, hawaiicommunityfoundation.org. Once you're here, you're going to go to the top right corner and click on Students. This will take you to our students page, which has general information about the application as well as our FAQs. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, it's going to have a link to Scholarship Manager, which is the site that we use to fill out the application. So once you click the link, it's going to ask you to log in with an existing scholarship account if you have one, using the email and password associated with it. If you forgot your email or password, do not create a new account. Feel free to contact us first, and then we can help you get set up with your account. But if this is your first time creating an account, you just need to fill out your email, create a password, and by the time the application opens, you can just log in and get started. So if you're considering applying for our application, all 300 of our scholarships have their own unique criteria, but the general ones that apply to most are to be a Hawaii resident, to demonstrate any sort of financial need, and to have a minimum cumulative GPA of a 2.0. So some required documents you're going to need for the application, the first one being your transcript. So it can be unofficial or official, and it has to be your most recent one. So on the transcript, it must include your institution's name, your full name, a list of your course history, your cumulative GPA, and then your current grades and information. So if you're a high school senior versus a current college student, what you're going to need on your transcript is a bit different. So for high school seniors, it's going to need at least your 9th through 11th grade information at a minimum. But if it's available, please include your senior year information. If you're a current college student, then it must include pretty much your first semester in college up until your most recent. So no need your high school information. And if you are a college freshman, you're going to have to wait until your fall term grades have been posted. The second document you're going to need for the application is the FAFSA submission summary. So the FAFSA is already open, as Elise has already mentioned. So you can get started now if you haven't already. And once you submit the FAFSA, you're going to get the FAFSA submission summary. You're going to save a copy of that as a PDF so that by the time the application opens, you can submit with your application. So what you're going to need on the FSS, though, is your full name, as well as your student aid index calculation, as well as the current year for the FAFSA being the 2026 and 2027 FAFSA. So some examples of invalid FAFSA submission summaries would be the Federal Student Aid Estimator. If you filled out the application last year, this was something you could alternatively upload to application, but this year we are only requiring the FSS. So if you upload the estimator this year, we will have to count your application as invalid. Your FSS would also be counted as invalid if it does not have the correct year or if it's missing your name and your SAI. We also have 2 required essays for the application. They're more similar, though, to short answers. The max amount of words you can include are 300. So, what inspired you to choose your field of study and academic plan, and how will your academic plans help you to give back to the community? These essays will also be on our website if you want to refer to them. And we do recommend that you type them in a separate document so you can get started early so that by the time the application opens, you can just copy paste it into the application. Now, some optional documents and questions for the application. So as I mentioned earlier, you have letters of recommendation. So this is optional, but you can request up to 3 recommenders. So when you add your recommenders to the application, it's just going to ask for their name and email. And once you've added them, your recommenders will receive an email from us with a link to submit their letters directly to the application portal. Now, another optional document that not all people will need is the Kamehameha School's Ho'olu verification letter. This is not applicable to all, but it's nice to have on hand if it does show up for you on the application. And then for high school seniors only, you can upload your SAT as well as your ACT scores. There are many optional questions on the application as well, but the more information you give us, the more opportunities you may qualify for. So it's always a good idea to take the time to go through all of the optional questions because the more you fill out, you have a higher chance of getting more scholarships. We also have affiliation questions on the application. So if you are an employee or employee dependent of any of these companies or organizations listed in the application, you can select up to 3, and you're going to provide the employee or the employee's name as well as their job role. And then once you submit that, that can also qualify you for more scholarships. So I would double check with either your employer or if your parent's employer has a scholarship with us. And then just to reiterate our important dates, December 8th is when the application opens, and then it closes on February 26th of next year at 4 p.m. And then your letters of recommendation will be due from the recommenders on March 13th of next year at 4 p.m. as well. Now we're going to move on to some helpful tips to keep in mind while you're filling out the application. So, starting off is to make sure your transcript as well as your FSS meet the requirements. We list this as our number one tip because it is the most common reason a lot of applications get denied. So, it's gonna have all the requirements on the application of what your transcript needs. So, make sure you read that very carefully before you submit the application. Our second tip is to ask for letters of recommendation early and to give your recommenders enough time to submit the letters. So if within the month before the letters of recommendation are due and your recommender hasn't submitted their letter yet, we do recommend you follow up with them to make sure you get it in on time. Even if your recommenders do not submit their letter, even if you listed them, that still does not disqualify you, though, from scholarships. And then, third piece of advice is mentioned a lot tonight, but is to start early. Give yourself enough time, not just to prepare all of your documents, but to go through the application when it's open, to make sure that everything is correct. And if you have any questions as well. As I mentioned earlier, you should be writing your short responses in a separate document. Another reason why you should do this is because the application portal has a 45-minute session limit. So if you are inactive for more than 45 minutes, the website will shut down. And so if you're working on your essays and you haven't saved your progress before it shuts down, then you'll have to start again. So it's a good idea to have those essays on hand if that does happen. And then our last piece of advice is to contact us before the deadline day if you have any questions. Majority of well, not a majority, but a good amount of applications do get submitted on the day of the deadline. So we'll have much limited capacity to answer all your questions on that day. And then here's a general timeline of our scholarship process. So in October or later even, you should be completing your FAFSA so that by the time the application is open, you can have that ready to submit the application by the deadline. And then once you submit, keep an eye on your email between the months of April and May for any updates on your awards. Typically, we'll send award notifications between May and June. So again, you will be notified via email if you have been awarded. And in the email, it's going to have some next steps for you to do to formally accept the award. So some helpful resources again is our students page. It'll have some general information as well as a copy of our 2026 and 2027 season flyer. And then there will also be a link to our scholarship FAQs. So that will have all of the information from this presentation and more if you have any further questions. So some contact information for you to keep on hand is, of course, Hawaii P20. If you have any questions about the FAFSA, feel free to give them an email or if you want to go to their website as well. And then last but not least is our contact information is if you have any questions, you can contact us via our scholarships hotline as well as our scholars email. And again, you can go to our website to check out the scholarship FAQs. That'll have a lot of information if you're curious about anything and cannot get in touch with us. Oh, and one last piece of advice is to add our email as well as our phone into your contacts. That'll help to prevent our emails from going to your junk folder. But that's pretty much all for me, and I'll stick around if anyone has any questions. But other than that, thank you guys for your time.
Awesome, Kelly. Well, we do have a bunch of questions. Okay, get ready.
All right.
And actually, if Elise is still here, some of these questions I'd like to pose to her too. But Kelly, this question's for you. do you need to be accepted to a university before applying for certain scholarships?
You do not. So when you fill out the application, it's going to ask you for your first choice institution. So even if that does change and you are awarded, you can make a change once you accept the award if you are awarded.
Okay. Elise, do you want to chime in on that as well?
Absolutely. A lot of people start looking for scholarships in their junior year in high school. You haven't even started that application process. So once you get to or know the college you're going to be attending, then you can let that organization know.
Okay. Early college has kind of complicated the landscape with financial aid. And I want to pose this question to you, Kelly. If my child is currently taking early college classes already while still being in high school, and most likely this student will graduate with an AA degree next year while still being in high school, will this student be eligible for scholarships?
So if you are a current high school senior and you're taking early college classes, you can upload a transcript of that to the application. Um, yeah, if they're gonna be in college the next year, so the 2026-2027 academic year, then yes, they of course should apply.
One of the problems that students with early college are going to run into is that scholarships many times have a minimum number of credits that you must be attending. And as they can say that you must be attending at least full time or you must be attending 3/4 time. And generally with early college, you're doing 3 or 6 credits. You're not attending full time. Also, your FAFSA is probably not, well, your FAFSA is not done. And if you did do it, it's not valid because one of the requirements for federal financial aid is that you have completed high school and or its equivalent. So not having yet completed high school means you can't get a valid FAFSA out of the game yet. And many of the scholarships will require that you submit, as they mentioned, the FAFSA submission summary or a copy of the FAFSA.
Okay. All right. This parent is asking about what is the best use of our time when it gets into non-need-based financial aid scholarships. So really looking at some merit-based scholarships and other different types of scholarships. Kelly, do you have any recommendations on writing for these different scholarships at Hawai'i Community Foundation?
Maybe would Jen like to answer this question?
So I would say that the biggest thing for our scholarships is that it's the one application for over 300. So to basically complete our application, knowing that while it is generally a basic criteria, that not all of the scholarships have that as the first priority. So definitely apply. And then that way you can be considered for all 300 plus scholarship opportunities.
Okay. Elise, do you want to chime in on that?
I think you have to be looking constantly for these non-financial need-based scholarships. These tools can really help point you in the right direction. So take a peek at some of the different search engines. I wouldn't start with 5 or 6 of them. Apply and look at a couple of them. If you need to expand that, you can. Some scholarship organizations will only post a scholarship in one tool. Some will overlap it, so you might find some overlap, but you need to be looking every possible place that you can all the
Do you,
time.
do you find that it is helpful to write for, say, 2 $5,000 scholarship as opposed to, say, 10 $500 scholarships?
I think you have less competition with the smaller ones than the larger ones, but if you create a couple of really good essays, again, you can, reuse them, customize them for that organization. Once you've written them, that's the hard work. throw it out there to as many places as you can. There are a lot of organizations that don't get enough applicants. And one of the questions I get all the time during these workshops is what if I'm close to the criteria, but I don't meet it exactly? Say an organization is looking for a 3.5 GPA, you have a 3.3. I'm going to tell you to throw your hat in the ring. Now, if you have a 2.5, you're pretty far off, but if you are close to what the criteria is, give it a try, especially if you've already written an essay that you can just tweak a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a scholarship when I was just very, very close to the criteria. Okay. Yes, and yes, I think we answered that. Can we start applying when we're not close? We've answered that. Here's a great question. Are only high school seniors allowed to apply for scholarships? Can a junior in high school apply for a scholarship?
So you are going to have to wait until you're in your senior year of high school to apply.
Okay.
Not on all the search tools, though. You can start looking in your junior year and start applying.
Okay. So for a national search, there are some opportunities out there that juniors can apply for.
Hmm.
Okay.
Again, you got to read what the criteria is on their websites.
Okay. Kelly, this is specifically for you. For Hawai'i Community Foundation scholarships, is residency determined for tax information or current student address?
So on the application, we are going to ask for your current Hawaii address.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. For letters of recommendation, does it have to be a junior or senior teacher, or could I ask a 9th and 10th grade teacher? What do you recommend?
So recommenders can be pretty much anyone from teachers from any grade that you've had. It can be coaches, previous employers that you know. A wide variety of recommenders are possible.
Okay. There's a bunch of questions that just popped up. I'm gonna get back to you, Godfather, so we can get to our last presenter of the evening. But I'm gonna ask this question to Elise and then also Kelly, because this is asking about creating a personal email address. What do you guys recommend about creating an email address specifically for scholarship searching?
Absolutely. A separate one outside of the one that is that you use for everything else. Especially if you're going to be on these search engines, they're going to sell your contact information. So you will be bombarded with a ton of email solicitation. Have a separate email account. Absolutely. That's a great question.
Okay. Kelly, you just echo that?
Yes, and also, so if you do create an account with us, we do recommend you use a personal email, especially because some students tend to use their high school email addresses. So next year, if they were to apply again and they lose their high school email address access, then they won't be able to get into their account.
All right. Such great questions that are popping up. I'm going to encourage Kelly and Jen to jump in on the questions. Godfather, back to you to have our last presenter of the evening.
Awesome. Such a bunch of good information we're getting this evening. And we're not done. We're going to move on with Brent Thomas from the University of Hawaii, and he's going to talk about the University of Hawaii Common Scholarship application. And I owe Brent just a million thank yous because I forgot to contact him earlier and I hit him up at the last moment, and the guy was willing to step up and handle it anyway. So greatly appreciated, Brent. We're glad you could make it. We're glad you're here. And if you will go ahead, I'm going to stop sharing and you can share your slides and take it through. There's my man. Hey, guy.
Hello. Let me find my slides real quick.
Okay.
Well, I thought I could find them real quick. Maybe I can't. Awesome. There we are. Let's share.
All right.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, and we can see your screen. Looking good,
Good.
Brent.
University System Common Scholarship application. So it opened October 1st, 2025, and will close March 2nd, 2026. It's one application for 800 scholarships. So there's no need to go out and fill out an application for every single scholarship. It's just one application and you are in the running for 800. You won't get 800. I'm sorry. However, it helps your chances and it's also a lot less work. For 25-26, we awarded over $4 million system-wide, and it's for any student attending a school within the University of Hawai'i System. So there's the 10 campuses. So as long as you're within that, the funding goes there. Our checklist, you must be a University of Hawai'i System student. You can complete a FAFSA. It's optional, but it is recommended. There's other scholarships that they may not consider your SAI so much, but it is something they want to look at. Unofficial transcripts are okay. We just request when you do your transcripts, make sure that you put them in the system because we won't have access to them, say, through the school that you submitted them to. We need contact information for 1 to 3 people for your recommenders. Also, a hint or a trick is to make sure you inform your recommenders first so that when they receive the email, they'll know what it is and they'll also know who you are. The last thing you want is them to go, oh, I don't know who this person is. We do have general essays, two 300-word maximums. There is one that's 600 words, but everything pretty much stays within 300 words. There are optional essays for specific scholarships, and you'll see those. They are optional, they're not required, but they do help. Now, some of them doesn't make sense for you to apply for, just because one in particular deals with construction or innovation in construction management. But if you're like a nursing major, there's really no need for you to fill out that application. So as you go through that whole process, review your application, go through everything, and then make sure you click submit. If you don't click submit and it closes, it will not be reopened to submit it. So here are the 3 essays. How do you currently plan to pay for college? It is required. Why did you choose your major? Also required. And describe an experience that helped you grow as a person. A recommendation for essays is to make sure you write it out first and give it to, say, a parent or someone to read it because they may think of something that you didn't think of. People have a tendency not really want to sell themselves, but this is what this is. This is you selling yourself so we kind of understand who you are. Community service is optional but highly recommended. I know a lot of Hawaii high schools require for seniors to have community service hours, so that's a really good thing. But there's also other hours you might want to consider. There's formal or informal service projects, volunteer hours. If you have responsibilities for, say, elder care, providing care for, say, a sibling with special needs, working to help financially support your family. That's all can be wrapped in with the community service aspect. Activities that give back to or contribute to the community. The only key thing that we ask for is that if you do indicate any community service, just please indicate this either paid or unpaid. I use my daughter as an example. She did a community service project at Planned Parenthood, and then has eventually but she also got paid for it. But that is something that she is definitely putting in her application. Letters of recommendation, we just need the names and email addresses of 1 to 3 references. All recommendations are submitted via online form. So as soon as you submit your application, they will receive an email from the system saying, hey, please go out and fill out this recommendation for your student. You can track your letter of recommendations even after submitting the application. So if you submit the application and you're just waiting for it to close, you can still go through and track them. The deadline for students for the list of emails or list the deadline for your list of your recommenders is March 2nd at 4 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time when the application closes. Deadline for recommenders to submit their replies is March 9th at 4 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. So it's the following week. So if you did your application early, they'll have plenty of time to fill out that recommendation for you. Transcripts. They're required if you're a first-time freshman or you're transferring from a non-University of Hawaii school. There's no need to submit UH transcripts. So if you are within the UH system and you want to there's no need to submit a transcript because we can look in the system if you're part of the system already. And transcripts can be unofficial, but please show your name, your grades, GPA, date printed, that kind of deal. Recommendations for students, take your time. Again, there's no advantage to submitting early. It's already been open now for a good month and a half. So you just be patient, take your time to go through it. But the last thing is, like everyone else has said, don't wait until the very last moment to submit it. The last thing you want to do is to have technical difficulties at 3:50 and then an application close. Answer your questions completely and accurately. Don't expect selection committees to fill in the blanks for you. You know you and your family knows you, but we don't know you. So what you put in that application is what we're going to use for selection. Your progress will autosave, so there's no need to do the application in one sitting. So, if you're going through it and you're filling it out and it times out, it will time out after 45 minutes. So be forewarned of that. When you're doing things like essays, log into the system, find your essay questions, and then log back out, take those essay questions, write them, and then when you're ready, come back in, copy and paste them in. Pretty easy. Ask people to proofread. That's very beneficial. You could write it and then throw it through like ChatGPT or something like that. Just don't have ChatGPT write it for you. It's not going to give you a good answer as well. It won't give you as good of an answer that you would give. So it's a tool. Just use it as a tool. Also, it's okay to recycle essays. We recycle things a lot in our professional careers. If you've ever had to apply for positions, you definitely recycle cover letters and things like that. Just make sure that it's tailored to the specific application that you're applying for. If you have any questions, feel free to email us here. I check it every day, and then that's my office number. So if you have questions about the scholarship application, feel free to call me.
Awesome.
Thank you, Brent. That's a lot of good information, folks.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Okay. Sorry, I was just responding to a question and I'm trying to read through all these questions really quickly. Brent, here's a question. Between UH, HCF, and Scholly, are submitted applications rejected if it is seen as a duplicate?
No, we will. The people we won't. If say Scholly or something like that, we won't see it. That's a completely different platform. If I'm understanding the question correctly.
Okay.
So it's just in the system. Eventually, once if you're awarded a scholarship and it goes to there, those scholarships will be applied to your to your package, and at some point in time, just to prevent an over award, the financial aid office will go and adjust those awards and things of that nature. But we won't see what you've submitted to other things. Oh, another thing to consider for the University of Hawaii system is the Common Scholarship application, but Manoa also has their STAR application too. So make sure you fill out that as well.
Okay. Brent, in your eyes, is there a pecking order to the type of letter of recommendation you recommend in terms of the type of people who should be writing a letter of recommendation for a student?
We will, professional experience, someone that you volunteer with. It could be a religious organization. We'll probably look at those more, or someone community service, people within the community service environments you worked with. We'll look at those better. Please avoid your parents. You're all great people, and your parents also think you're great people. And so yeah, parents are great, but my kids are great in my eyes. So,
Okay. Is the UH Regent Scholarship part of the Common Scholarship application?
Regents should be STAR.
Okay, that's a STAR application.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me get back. Let me check on. I think for the other 10 campuses besides Manoa, it's within STAR.
Okay. There's a question on here that's referring to a lottery system for scholarships. Do you know anything about that? Godfather, do you know anything about that?
I do not know.
Asking about a lottery system for scholarship, and then do you know if this is a waste of time?
I would be very suspicious of it right off the top of my head, and I'm not familiar with it. I've not seen it. It doesn't sit right with me.
Okay. At least you know anything about that?
I know that we do a random drawing for whoever enters puts in some information on that form, but I would agree with Frank if it's a particular lottery. Has to be a reputable organization.
Okay.
If
All
it's
right.
too good to be true, it probably is.
There you go.
That
Yeah.
is the classic Godfather financial aid line. Yeah. Okay, guess what? We've answered all the questions that are out there. So Brent, I'm going to ask you the key question that everybody wants to know about the UH Common Scholarship application, and that's if I'm not totally committed to the UH scholarship. I mean, if I'm not totally committed to the UH campus yet, should I still apply to the UH Common Scholarship application?
Yes. And so, again, my daughter, same thing. She's a senior. She's looking at schools across the United States. But she's also doing this, Common Scholarship application as well. If, if she gets something else, good for her, bad for us, but, good for her. But at some point in time, that money will not go to waste. If you apply and you receive it and then you go somewhere else, that we have reports that for things that, for scholarships that don't pay out, and then we'll just usually, if we can, we'll try to pass it on to the next student.
Okay. And
DJ, let's wrap up with some announcements at the very end.
yeah. And then we'll take any last questions. I think
Any last questions at the end? Yeah.
Marshall's trying to ask a question about our 3 scholarship opportunities tonight. And Marshall, can you restate that question again? We're not following again. Yeah, let's close with the last of our opportunities. Guys, the Native Hawaiian Scholarship AHA goes on. Again, we're talking about starting in person and actually doing local based scholarships before we do our nationwide searches. So the Native Hawaiian Scholarship AHA series brings together all the opportunities for Native Hawaiians in one place. It's open to everybody because definitely are some opportunities for everybody. We're going to be out there in Nanakuli next week, Thursday. Everybody's invited. Dinner's going to be provided. So come out, join us in Nanakuli at 6:00 p.m. You guys can register at collegeiswithinreachhawaii.com. Next slide, please. If you guys need help completing your FAFSA, we're going to be here every Wednesday from now and until next spring, pretty much. We have no life. We're going to be helping students and parents completing the FAFSA every Wednesday. This is a great place to get your FAFSA completed, but also get your questions answered if you have a problem with your FAFSA, or if you have your FAFSA submitted and you need something done, like maybe locating your free your FAFSA submission summary. Those are some of the things that students are having a hard time doing right now. Come see us every Wednesday at 6:00 p.m. You guys can register for that. It's always free. Come join me and the godfather of financial aid, Mr. Frank Green, at collegeiswithinreachhawaii.com. And the last slide is, and then we have one last virtual scholarship workshop, November 20th. If you want to come visit us again, we'll be here Thursday, November 20th. collegeiswithinreachhawaii.com. Hey, look at that. It's on the page for you right there.
Just one more time, collegeiswithinreachhawaii.com. There's never a charge for these workshops. They're always free, but we do need you to register in order to pass the links on to you. We want to thank you all very, very much for joining us this evening. That does conclude our formal presentation. We leave you and remind you that if you have issues, questions about the financial aid, the FAFSA, whatever, come talk to us at fasfa@hawaii.edu. We don't care where you're going to school. This is open to anybody in the state of Hawaii. Come and talk to us there. We're happy to help you.
We're going to stick around, answer any last questions. There's a question here about the AI checker used on essays. Brent, do you want to jump in on that? Do we use AI checker?
We do not, and it's just, anecdotally, they're not as good as they say they are. And so I would, they can say, oh, that's AI or whatever, but personally, we don't use that. It's just, and if someone says that they can discern it, the technology is not that great yet.
Okay. The question we have here is, what was the last scholarship website? Brent, could you give us the website to access for the UH Common Scholarship application?
Let me throw it in chat real quick.
And Marshall, are you able to restate your question about HCF, Scali, and the University of Hawaii? They do not utilize the same funding providers. That is correct. They do not use the same funding providers.
Which means, if applicable, you definitely want to be applying to all three of them.
Yes.
That's different pools of money that you can tap into.
Yes. So Marshall's asking, so through the three different so Scali is a search engine. So Scali makes you eligible, or is going to offer you thousands of opportunities to apply for scholarships. So what that means is, Marshall, yes, you would apply for multiple scholarships. If you offer Marshall scholarships through HCF, is Marshall scholarships offered through Scali?
Could be.
Not necessarily, could be, but
Could
yeah,
be.
not necessarily.
Okay.
Scali is just a tool
Yeah,
where
Scali
we
is
house an aggregate list of scholarships. in our tool to help you find some free resources.
Okay. Brent, this one's for you. Just want to reconfirm, since my child is under the UH system for early college, can
Mhm.
my child be eligible for all those UH Manoa scholarships offered?
Are they still currently, or will they be a freshman in the fall? Is the key. So I don't know. I don't think we have any scholarships for early college. I would have to look into that one to be honest. And but you know, if they're in early college now, they already have an ID number, so they should be able to log in and apply for stuff in the for the fall.
Okay. Um, Godfather, this one's for us. Look at this.
What do we got?
How do you access the FSS to submit to HCF for their HCF application?
I know this. I know this. I know this. Go to studentaid.gov. The student will then click on login. Hear me well. The student will click on login. It has to be the student's username and password. Parent, you do not have access to this information. Your student is protected under the Federal Educational Right to Privacy Act, which means they need to log in. They'll move down to the My Activity block. It's kind of in the middle of the screen, and they'll see the 2627 FAFSA. Click on that. The next page, there will be a link that says View My FAFSA Submission Summary. Click on that, and they're into their FAFSA submission summary. And from there, they can print it to submit with the different scholarships.
Awesome. And Marshall's, and if it is seen twice, will it be rejected? Marshall's asking if the same application is seen twice, will it be rejected?
I think on most scholarships, they're not going to let you submit a second application. Once you're in their system, they know who you are. You can't do it again.
Yeah.
It's like FAFSA. You can't do two of them.
Okay. So Brent,
Mhm.
follow up on that question. My child might graduate with an AA degree when he graduates from high school next
Mhm.
year. So student going to graduate from high school and will have his AA degree.
We'll still qualify for. He'll still be able to qualify for this for the scholarships.
At UH Manoa. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Awesome. We just answered all the questions.
Awesome. Well, with that, everybody, we thank you very, very much for attending. We wish you a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful evening. Go eat your dinner if you haven't done that already. Again, remember FAFSA at hawaii.edu. If you have additional questions, we can always forward these on if we don't have the answers. Again, to our presenters, mahalo nui for joining us this evening. Elise, I know it's late. Get out of here. Go home. Well, I know you're home already, but kick back, relax, take your shoes off, girl. Thank you all very much, everybody, and aloha.